long meetings, subcommittee meetings, and a workshop. We will start at 4:10 with our board meeting today. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4:10, and this is the June 27, 2017 Board of Directors meeting for the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. I'm calling the meeting to order, and I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Fano, would you lead us in the pledge today? Sure. Ms. Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Edmondson? Here. Mayor Jimenez? Here. Ms. Gutierrez? Here. Mr. Meyer?
Present.
Mr. Walters? Treasurer Board? Here. Secretary Wolf?
Here.
Vice Chair Fano? Chair Martinez?
Here. Okay. I am going to move the schedule a little bit, and I'd like to do, before the approval of the agenda, I'd like to do the citizens' comments. Are there any citizen comments today? Hearing none, Mr. Counsel, has anyone indicated that they wish to be heard before the board today?
No, sir.
Very good. Now let's move on to the next item. Prior to approving the agenda, I'm going to ask for a chairman's privilege from all of you for the first time in 2 years. It's been a true pleasure to be your chairman for the last 2 years, and it's been an honor to be a member of the board of directors for the last 9. I am proud of the team effort we have put forth to protect our clients' money and to keep promises to the millions of individuals and thousands of businesses that drive our highways daily. I have always been proud of 2 things that we have kept, promises we've kept to the men and women that run our roadways. One, the by MDX stays here in Miami-Dade County. Number 2, that every dollar collected by MDX is spent on our roadways to improve our transportation issues. We have kept those promises the entire time I'm here. Things that have occurred over the last few weeks have indicated to me a concern that there is a possibility that some of our long-term capacity projects may be in jeopardy of being able to be approved. As many of you know, several weeks ago, we were discussing the extension of the 836 project, and there were many members of the community that were against the project moving forward from various different reasons. Some of it included using our toll dollars for things outside of our roadways. Mr. Mayor, I know you care greatly about the 836 extension project because even when you were out of the country, representatives of your staff came forward and indicated how strongly you felt about it. My concern is that if the ultimate requirement is for that project to be within the UBD line, it cannot be done because it would require us to displace thousands of individuals, hundreds of businesses, parks, etc. We also saw that during that meeting, individuals from the community and others indicated that MDX toll dollars should be used to fund such things as the SMART program and other projects and not the expansion of our capacity. Today we had a budget workshop. We talked about it, you pointed it out, how as by 2024, we're going to see a reduction in our debt. We have always maintained that our dollars are to be used to improve transportation. I voted against the current toll rate because I'm a fiscal conservative and I believe being lean and mean. However, I lost a vote. I never looked back because the dollars were being used to expand our capacity. If, however, the philosophy now is for those dollars to be diverted to other things, then what we should look into is reducing our tolls as we reduce our debt. That will not affect our rating and will not affect our capacity. Recently, I've asked staff to provide me with a preliminary look at how we can do that as we reduce our debt. It's a phasing program that requires 5 stages. It is something I believe this board should look at because many of us were not in favor of the original toll. Legislation has just been passed to discuss the reduction of tolls as well. Clearly, there is an atmosphere that our tolls are too high. If that is the case, and if the intention is not to use our tolls dollars for what they were initially made to be, I think we should have staff provide us with a phasing program on how we can reduce the tolls as we move forward. So I'm going to ask for the agenda to be amended so that we can discuss the toll policy today. I'm going to ask for a vote. If it's accepted, Ms. Chair, I will ask you to take the meeting over so I can move it, so that we can discuss that issue and direct staff to provide us with a possible schedule in which we can phase it. The preliminary schedule they gave me indicated that at the completion of the phasing, if no new projects are done, we can have the tolls reduced significantly in due time. This is not what I believe in. I believe in continuously to expand our capacity because I believe we need that. I believe the 836 extension is a game changer. I believe those 600,000 people that live out there need this. But I also believe that we made a promise to the men and women who drive our tolls that we would keep them safe, that we would keep maintenance, and that the dollars they spent were going to be used for tolls. If that is going to, if we're going to change that in any way, they should be heard, and there should be a way for them to respond in what they feel. So I'm asking you all, if you allow me to add an action item for us to discuss this at this point during the point of the meeting when we get into action agenda items. If anyone has any objection, please inform me now. If not, it will be added as part of our discussion when we get to the budget workshop. Yes.
Please, in all due respect,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, to add something as an action item on the agenda, and I look to council for this, I believe that it has to be noticed.
Yeah, the rule is that it has to get 7 days prior, but that doesn't mean that you can't bring something up. We've done that before, but if someone wants to say, I want 7 days, then they can
I just want the
ask to
record
table
clear.
it.
I'm very much about Robert's rules. I was
No,
explaining
and
that to...
I clarify that. Anyone here could 4-day rule it and say it needs to be 7-day ruled it, and that's fine if someone wishes to do that. If not, again, we can make this an item to discuss. Nothing is going to be passed today that sets policy, but I think it's something that we should do. I asked staff to give me a type of a schedule that we can discuss, and we can move on. I just think this is important because I've spent 2 years saying the same thing over and over again. Our dollars are spent on our roadways. Our dollars are kept here in Miami-Dade County. We have been partners when it comes to, with the county and with everyone else, when it comes to such things as the SMART plan. I still believe we should be partners in all of that. But when you see what was attempted to be done at the TPO when it was to require us to take over one of the corridors, and when you see what occurred when it came to the 836 extension, I am concerned that the intent is to use our toll dollars for other ways and not allow us to be able to expand our capacity, which is a disservice to our drivers. So I am in no way saying that it shouldn't be done, but it should be discussed. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Look, if you want to put something for discussion that says give us back some more information about our toll policy, I have no problem with that. All right.
Okay.
But I would be hesitant to say that because something that happened at the TPO or something that happened at the Board of County Commissioners, that we're going to somehow take some action, all right, about it. Number one, I think that what happened at the Board of County Commissioners, I think we need to go about it a different way. I've been out there. I am a proponent of the 836, but with everything there's give and take and there's compromise, all right? And so it's not my way, the highway. It's not their way or the highway. It's our way, okay? It's our highway. It's the highway for all of the people, and I believe that the people of Kendall need relief. I understand the environmentalists' objections to moving or building outside the UDB, but you know, I think we need to take a look and at least give a report as to if you did it inside the UDB, what that would cost, all right? What kind of disruption it would cause to the people that are living inside the UDB. If you're going to go outside the UDB, how far outside the UDB do you really need to go? And my example is of the Alligator Alley. Alligator Alley is an expressway in the middle of the most sensitive parts of the state, right through the middle of the Everglades. I don't see strip malls and houses popping up all over the place next to Alligator Alley, all right? So you can have a highway that may be in outside the UDB, and by the way, parts of UDB are not sensitive areas, they just happen to be outside the UDB, and not have that highway be used as concurrency for some kind of development. Because I'm a hold the line person. I've been all my career, all right? But I'm not an absolutist either. All right, and so I see that the people of my West, especially Kendall, need relief, and I think it's a great project. And so before we go off and start changing policy, I want to bring it back up. I like to I like to work with the executive director because unlike other folks, I do have sunshine issues with you, but I don't have sunshine issues with any commissioner. I don't have any sunshine issue with any TPO member because I'm not a member of the TPO and I'm not a commissioner. So therefore, I can talk to all the commissioners and all the members of the TPO about that project without any kind of sunshine issue, all right? And that's, I think, one of the reasons why the vice chairwoman and I are here is to kind of bridge bridge a gap between Miami-Dade County and the MDX so that we understand each other, what we want, that we understand you better, okay? Why is it that MDX does certain things, and now you have two people that are on the board that may understand why you do certain things, and you also have two people on the board that'll say, well, look, this is the way we see things on the other side, okay? So,
and if I may, Mr., I agree with you on all those things, and obviously, I am much more in favor of moving forward than moving backwards. That has always been my philosophy, and I've always been comfortable with the concept of working together with others. But what I don't want to see, because that's not what MDX was created for, was for our toll dollars to be diverted solely for other aspects of transportation. That's just not what was done, and that's not why the toll rate was set the way it was. You've seen by 2024, we're going to start seeing a reduction of our debt. If the projects are not going to, or 2024, 2027, based upon in that general area, if we're not going to expand capacity because we're not going to do any more projects, because the debt we have now is based on the projects that have already, our ground has been broken. If it's not going to be that way because the idea is that public transportation is the goal, I totally accept it. That is absolutely what policymakers make. But that's not the promise we made to our users, because this is a user fee. This is the people who use our toll roads make a decision to use them. So to me, as a person who's going to be using the MDX tolls or the turnpike, I want to make sure those dollars are used in a way that is conducive to benefiting my transportation experience. I am 100% in support of working and finding different ways to do it. But I am concerned that there is a possibility that people see us as an opportunity to use our funds and limit our ability to move forward with our projects. That is my only concern. It may not come about, it may be able to, we can move forward, but there was legislation that just passed indicating we should reduce our tolls. That is something that has passed, that either we should reduce it between 5 and 10%. That is also something that indicates that there is an interest or a belief that we should reduce them. I'm simply saying, let's do it in a way that we satisfy our debt first, and then we can continue to reduce them more dramatically rather than extend our debt. That is part of what I'd like to discuss. That is simply why I wanted to bring forward.
If it's a discussion about what the state did and the requirement to reduce the tolls, and look, I have no problem reducing tolls, okay? I'm a very fiscal conservative, all right? So, but I also want to make sure that whatever we do here as MDX is part of a total mobility solution for the people of Miami-Dade County, because frankly, the people of Miami-Dade County don't care if it's MDX, Miami-Dade County, the TPO, or any other entity that's involved. Maybe, frankly, we have too many entities involved, all right? And we don't coordinate well enough. And that's what we really need to do as a community, start to coordinate better mobility, how to get people around, all right? Not just in cars, not just in trains, not just in buses, but, you know, how we get people around because they don't care. What they want is relief.
Sure.
And they want relief yesterday. And so my view or my job as mayor is trying to you know, make sure that all of you all work together. And the only thing I'm a member of is this board, the MDX board, all right? I also happen to run the transit agency, yes, all right? So I have two hats. But I'm not a member of the commission, I'm not a member of the TPO. So we can't be, you know, us, them thing, okay? It's us.
And I agree with you. And if the interpretation was that, it's not. It's more than interpretation that we keep our word to the drivers of our roads. This is not us against them. This is more about finding a way to do it in a way that is beneficial to all. So if that is what you interpreted, that is not what I intended.
Well, that's how the conversation started, okay? So maybe I interpreted, you know, you started your comments with a certain comments, and so it then went off to something else. And so that's what I interpreted. And so
and I apologize for that.
Okay. And so again,
But
that
nonetheless,
being said, I'll be happy to study, you know, anything that comes our way on how to reduce tolls for the people of Miami-Dade.
So then, does anyone have any objection for us to have this item brought forth today as a discussion item then so that we can discuss it? Commissioner.
My speaker working? Okay. Yeah, I have a concern. I
Okay.
really would not like for this to be an action item.
No, I said discussion item.
So you did say discussion?
What I'll do is I will make it a discussion item today, and then we can move it forward to become an action item as we move forward. That way we can have a discussion about it today, and then we can move it forward after, based upon the information and recommendations we give staff. That way we can discuss it, but it doesn't have to be an action item today. If that's acceptable to you, Commissioner, and to Mr. Mayor.
I don't have a problem discussing it. I would rather be prepared for a discussion. Having one today, we're still not prepared. I don't think all of us are prepared because this is something that's just coming up. Maybe the next meeting, but if everyone wants a discussion, I'm willing to go along with it.
Okay.
But I really don't think we should even discuss it today.
I have never been, as everyone knows, I've never been someone that's not gone for the will of the people. So what's other people's opinion on this issue? Ms. Gutierrez.
I think you've heard the concern, and we hear the noise from the background, and I see where you're coming from. But I think with the standard and performance of how we lead the agency, this is something that we need to consider. Yes, you can open up the item for discussion, and we hear your concerns. We're all here. But I think consideration has to be given that this particular item, given what it does and generations that it would change of things that are now in place, it really needs to go back to a committee.
Absolutely.
So it could be thoroughly vetted. And at that point, we then all come in with the tools necessary to make the decision and what is the best interest, not only of MDX, but this community, our toll payers, our bondholders. And I'm sure that that's what you had in mind. So I would be very happy to move it as an item to add to the agenda for discussion, to then go to a committee for a full vetting.
Would you find it acceptable if we make it to a committee of the whole instead of one individual committee? Would that be acceptable to you, Ms. Gutierrez, to add to your motion?
I have no problem with that.
Fine.
Yes.
If we can, Mr. Board, if you have any comments or...
In general, I do not like to come to a discussion unprepared.
Okay,
So from that perspective, as an opening or as a leading point, I'll follow your lead, but I would not like to conclude anything.
okay. And I'll hear from this side before I make a statement. Ms. Secretary Wolf, no comments? Mr. Meyer, you're fine with it? Do you want to discuss it today, or you want to set it for a discussion item down the line? Okay, Mr. Walters. Okay, so how do we do this? Why don't Mr. Rodriguez, before we,
If I may, I'm hearing the board, and this is not unusual. There's been other items throughout my tenure that the board has wanted to have a discussion, and it goes back and forth. I think the appropriate thing, Mr. Chair, and I think you have the ability to do that, is to ask the board for a directive, direct the staff to prepare that analysis. We'll bring it to the next committee, and we will make sure that every board member has the various scenarios and what those impacts are. We just had a budget workshop, and you just saw what the revenue issues are and the impacts. So if you just make it a directive, I think we can do that. I heard you loud and clear, and it's on audio, so I can always go back and know exactly what it is you guys want us to analyze.
so here's what I will do. I have no interest in getting into a vote. If it's not a unanimous decision, then we're not going to move forward today. That is what I will suggest if it's acceptable. I will ask for a directive for staff to prepare a presentation or an issue relating to our options insofar as phasing and reducing the tolls as our debt is satisfied and what ramifications those have. I will also direct them to set up a date that is acceptable to a majority of the members for a meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Since we will be down to 2 committees, that way all members can be there and not just a percentage. That way we can all be acceptable. Does anyone have any objection with those directives being made to staff? No. Any objections? Fine, then what we'll do is, that will be the directive. I will not then change the agenda. The agenda will remain as it is. Does anyone else have any requests to change the agenda? Yes, Mr. Jimenez.
No, just a comment that your discussion on the discussion led to what the discussion would have ended up with anyway.
Right, exactly, which is exactly, but now the item's going to be discussed. So if no one has anything, the agenda now is set. Council, please.
Declaration of voting conflicts. Do any members of the board have any conflicts with any items on the agenda? Seeing none, we move forward.
Approval of the minutes. Moved by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Mr. By who? Seconded by Mayor Jimenez. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item approved. Executive Director's report.
Yeah, I'll be brief because we've discussed a lot of this already, and I'm going to cover both the TPO representative report and the director's report. As I discussed earlier, TPO Resolution 2117 asked for MDX to come back in 30 days with a plan, a formal commitment to assume project management, which would include full funding for the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of one of the 6 strategic Miami area transit plan corridors. As I mentioned at our budget workshop, I'm prepared to present to this board before I take it back to the TPO that we can assume the express bus service on 836, which is a smart corridor, and we can also assume it on 874 and 878. Beyond that, I think requires a lot more conversation as far as how we would assume a rail, and we had that conversation before. As far as the southwest extension of 836, just so that everyone is on the same, in the same status. The status of the request that was made by Commissioner Diaz and co-sponsored by Commissioner Martinez was for the county, for the mayor to include in this cycle of the CDMP, the southwest extension of the 836. His intent was to expedite the implementation of the project. As we saw, the vote went down 3-2. We're confident that we can show alignments that meet the objectives of everyone along the community. As I said at last board meeting, our intent at MDX is not to just have a nice study done and put on the shelf. We want a permittable project. And to get a permittable project, you give and take. That's the way it's done. And we are confident that there are alignments that will meet everyone's intent. So if it's the will of the commission to reconsider that, great. If it isn't, we will continue through the PD&E process, NEPA. We'll go to an alternatives workshop in the fall, and we will submit as the applicant in January. That was the original schedule. We were trying to expedite it. We will do as the commission feels whatever they're comfortable with. As far as the House bill, it was signed. I don't really have a lot to say about it, other than at the request of the board, we've already submitted our request for review by the Attorney General on very specific items as far as our trust indenture, and that's pretty much it. I do want to alert the board that we did have a meeting this month with the town of Miami Lakes, where we're beginning the 67th Avenue ramp onto the Gratigny. And the meeting included the mayor, the vice mayor, the town manager, and a number of other folks. They have committed to be a partner with us in the Community Advisory Committee, the community group. Each one of them is going to name. We're also going to work with the city of Hialeah, because it abuts both communities, to have a good community group to look at that project and see if we can expedite it as was requested by the TPO. And then the last thing is Fitch Ratings has done their surveillance. Their credit committee is going to meet this week. So we will probably get a rating report this week, and we'll see where that goes. I hope that they look at the finances of the agency and not any of the external issues in preparing their report, but that's somewhat out of our control. With that, I really have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Let's start with Mr. Mayor Jimenez. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like the executive director, did you do, when you did the 836 extension, did you vet an extension that was inside the UDB?
Yes, we looked at alternatives inside the UDB and outside the UDB, and we discarded them, and I have a full report that shows why they were discarded, and it was based on the impacts of the community. All of that information is ready, and we can share it with the.
Do you have different alternatives outside the UDB?
Yes, we do. We have
Okay.
various alternatives.
I would like the chair to allow me to work with the executive director to go to the committee members of that particular committee to see if we can get them to reconsider their vote. I think it was 3-2, and so it can go forward to the full commission. All right. I think it's a very important project, but I also understand the apprehensions of certain members of that committee about expanding the UDB, although this doesn't expand the UDB. And so I would like to work with the executive director and go, but I want to see what you have so that we can go forward together and talk to those committee members, see if we can revive this and push this forward, because I do believe the people of West Dade, Kendall, et cetera, need relief. And by the way, that also helps people in South Dade too, because it alleviates traffic on the turnpike. People can continue to move west instead of having to go south on the turnpike and then go west. That also alleviates the traffic on the turnpike. And so, again, it's all about mobility. It's all about getting people there faster, quality of life, et cetera. This is a quality of life issue for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in that part of town. So I'll be happy to work with you. I think this is something that we can rectify if we do it correctly, okay?
Mr. Mayor, I couldn't agree with you more. There is over 600,000 residents of Miami-Dade County that live west of the turnpike that this would affect in a positive way. So absolutely, any assistance you can in trying to move this project forward is extremely appreciated, because it's not about us. It's not about the board. It's not about the project. It's about the people who need the assistance. So absolutely, I have no objection whatsoever with you working with the executive director and seeing if you can facilitate us moving this project forward. Ms. Gutierrez.
Mr. Chair, one more thing. This particular project also needs a financial component of it. I think it's very important that we now start discussing how and which sources are we going to raise the funds to fund that particular project, because the only funds that we currently have for that is the PD&E study. Nothing else is there. This is a unfunded need that we all desire and want.
Correct.
So I think it's important and prudent for us to start discussing that, so both items are aligned.
I think
So-
I couldn't agree with you
And sending
more on
it to
that.
budget.
Absolutely. The item should be sent to budget so that we can deal with the finances, but we also need to move forward on getting the project approved as expeditiously as possible. Because, just for clarification, what occurred 2 weeks ago did not kill the project. It simply meant that we would have to apply through the normal course of an application process. This was an effort to try to expedite it so that we can move this project forward more quickly to be able to move it forward as quickly to help those there. So both of you, I agree with both of you. We can send it to finance, and Mr. Mayor, absolutely, you're a member of our board, and please, any assistance you can have would be greatly appreciated. On this side, any questions? Mr. Meyer.
Thank you, Chair. To the Executive Director, the status of 83611, and I know it's difficult for you to comment because you're a part of that process. Can you give us an outlook of what potential expectations are? And the other reason I ask that is because I believe in Board Member Board's presentation, we had in the 18 budget, $60 million allocated for that project.
Yeah.
What do we expect?
Actually, that's a great point, Board Member Myers. 83611, for those that don't know in the audience, is the 836 I-395 partnership that we have with the Florida DOT. As everyone knows, the project there's been a protest filed, and it is going through the administrative process for resolution. And I cannot predict how long that's going to take, but when we entered into the agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation and the joint participation agreement, it called for yearly payments to the project. And in fiscal 18, we have a $60 million payment. If for any reason the project is delayed and that money is freed up, then that money is what we would use to advance the 67th Avenue interchange, or we would look to advance. It's a cash flow issue, so that's what we would look to do. But I don't know if the Secretary can comment any more than that.
Mr. Secretary.
I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
The administrative hearing process should conclude in 5 or 6 months if it doesn't settle prior to then. There would be some potential of a suit, which is unpredictable in time.
Okay. Any other questions on that matter, Mr. Meyer? Mr. Walters, any questions? Vice Chair Fano. Thank you for your information and report. Yes, Ms. Gutierrez.
One more thing, I don't want to be the troublemaker in the room, but, it's okay to have a few, not one, just a few. Okay?
Why should you be any different now than you've been for 9 years?
Exactly, so now I'm happy that there's more than one. Here, the executive director said that there's a particular item regarding the SMART plan that we could consider to also fund. I want to circle back to that and not forget that that's a very important item. Can that be addressed at a committee so we fully understand what it is, how it's going to work, how much it is, and is that going to suffice? And it's going to be something that's viable and doable.
Yeah. Board Member Gutierrez, I didn't want to preempt a future item, an item of the budget approval, but as we discussed at the budget workshop, there is a line item, there is a dollar amount for us to look at the express bus service. That allocation is just an approval. We will have to bring back to you what we think is the right way to proceed and how it could be done and what service levels we would request, what kind of vehicle types we would want, the frequencies, the stops, all of that would have to be brought back to this committee before it even goes out to the market for bids. So, yes, it'll come back to you.
Now, to follow up on that, unless you have another question, Ms. Gutierrez, on that issue. Based upon what the urging that we received, you're going to need to make a presentation now in July, is that correct?
Yes, July 20th.
Okay. I would like a directive, if it's acceptable to all the members, for us to have either an emergency, another board. We normally do not meet in July, but we should give our executive director guidance before that meeting on what information, what is our position going to be for the TPO to be accurate. So unless anyone has any objection, I'd like to ask staff to direct staff to schedule a board meeting sometime in July prior to that meeting for us, either via, it could be by phone if necessary, but for us to be able to hear a special workshop so that we can give guidance to them before they make their response to the TPO pursuant to the urging that was asked for. And does anyone have an objection to that? Mr. Mayor, do you seem to?
I don't have an objection. I just would like to, again, have the executive director meet, put my other hat on as a county mayor, meet with me and Alice Bravo and maybe the TPO executive director to see how we can coordinate our plans so that whatever comes out of the MDX is acceptable to Miami-Dade and the TPO, okay? And I think that we really should be rowing in the same direction anyway. And like I said before, you know, I may not be fully in agreement with some of my former colleagues in terms of the mode of transportation. I don't know what mode of transportation it's going to be. There has to be studies done for that. Correct. And like I told you before, I'm more about the future than I am about the past. And all I want to do is move people quickly and efficiently and as cheaply as possible, as cheaply for them as possible, and as cheaply also for the community at large. Because right now, we subsidize every single rider of our system to the tune of about $4,000 a year, okay? And so that is a pretty high cost per rider, and so that has to be taken into consideration. A lot of the options that have been looked at are extremely expensive. And as you saw from the graphics on who is taking what, you know, 93% of the people in this town still ride a car, right? 3% of the people are riding transit. And frankly, our numbers are going down, all right? And that's concerning. And why is it going down? And I think it has to do with time. And for me, the only thing that really is important is time. Time. If I can shorten your ride, if we can shorten the ride, then maybe they'll get out of their cars, all right? Or in some other kind of vehicle. It doesn't have to be what everybody thinks it needs to be. It could be something else. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same wavelength, and again, have the executive director meet with us, all right, in the very near future, so we can discuss this item so that whatever comes out is acceptable to all three parties.
I have no objection to you being involved in that capacity whatsoever, and of course, I will defer obviously to whoever the next chair is, if they wish to participate in that meeting too. I'm not going to take their right away from that at all whatsoever. But what's important is for us to, I agree with you, to continue to move forward, and the idea is for us to do that. So I couldn't disagree with that more. So what I would ask, I'm going to direct staff to schedule either a workshop before the July 20th TPO meeting so that we are fully appraised by staff on what their recommendation is and how we can satisfy the urging of the TPO as is established, so that we can discuss that with them. And prior to that, from the mayor and yourself to meet with Ms. Bravo and Ms. Boulier and whoever else is required, so that we can continue to move this forward. Did you have any questions on that, Mr. Rodriguez?
No.
Any other questions on that item? All right, moving on then. General Counsel's report.
Yeah, I have two items. I'm going to give you a litigation update. I want to talk a little bit about the bylaws. MDX is our KB Investment Corporation. This is the one we had the shade meeting, our last shade meeting, and Board Member Myers asked for an update last week. Without getting any particulars, I can give you an update. We tendered our offer for business damages, not received a response. The construction has demanded that we acquire additional property interest easements that will be used to complete the work. The business damage claim does not have to be settled until the property damage claim is settled. It's the opinion of the outside counsel that the additional takings will not affect the business damage claim. So it's not ripe right now. Secondly, I want to talk a little bit about the bylaws. I completed all the changes to the bylaws. As I read them again, I found an issue that I discussed with the executive director, and I would like to bring this forward. This probably should be a discussion item, but I don't want to be perceived that my idea was precipitated after the election of the new chairperson. In my opinion, the way the policy is crafted, its net result is definitely going to change the way we do business. The policy states that the chair is a member of both committees, but not in an ex officio capacity. So therefore, the chair must attend every meeting and count towards quorum. This means it's an exponential increase in time and work for the chair. It may serve as a prohibition of a member of the board actually running for chair. We have gone from 5 committees to 2 committees with the same amount of work. We may also want to look at scheduling for the board and the committee meetings, therefore cutting down on the time that board members have to be here. We don't have 13 members anymore. I shared my opinion with the executive director, and he agreed that this may be maybe a discussion item for a committee. What I would like to do, if the board is amenable, is discuss the matter with the newly elected chair, bring some ideas to the Finance, Planning, and Policy committee for consideration to share the workload.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I'd like
Ms.
to
Gutierrez.
address this item. I would definitely push for a reconsideration of what we voted, and that this particular item be taken to committee for full discussion. If you look at what he just said, this is really something that's stacking the deck. If we have 3 committees and the chair is voting on both committees and then running the board of directors, think about it. It really brings out, in a small setting that we now have with 9 members, it's stacking. It's stacking the deck. There's no other word that comes to mind at this point that I can think of. So I really think that we need to reconsider and take this item into committee. And perhaps the way we do it is we do it like the Vice President of the United States, that basically, if there is a tide, the chair actually is the one that comes in to vote in the committees to untie the vote. At only that moment does the chair have an ability not to vote, but to break the tie. We do it just like the Vice President of the United States. And by the way, this just happened not too recently that we all got to see it.
A couple times this year.
So the chair, exactly, the chair acts as an ex officio member, not a voting member in any of the committees. We've got a lot of work to be done. It will be a lot of strain of time on the chair. But again, I'm for accountability, and right now, the way we have it, it isn't accountable. It really is leaning in a different direction, so.
Do you want to convert this discussion to an action item to move it back to committee, or what do you want to do here?
Exactly. I want to reconsider the way we voted, so that particular item is reconsidered and taken back to policy. So we can fully vet what exactly the scenario that I just said and the opportunity to change what the chair in itself would be, an ex officio member, not necessarily voting at committee, only to tie the vote.
Counsel.
I think that you can direct us to come up with, policy that would address Board Member Gutierrez's issues, the issues that I explained. I really have a concern for, the board is here at least 10 meetings. If you have a committee meeting, that will add 20 meetings, and the chair will have to attend 30 meetings a year, and that's a lot. If we could probably, I spoke with the executive director. He had some real good ideas on how we could maybe cut down on meetings. That way you won't have to be here. You might have to be here longer, but you won't have to be here so many times.
How does anyone else have it? I'll make the directive, but I want to make sure, does anyone have any objections for us that being directed to staff?
No, I want to add something else.
course.
It's not, I don't want anybody to take this personally. I just think that when you create a policy, you have to think beyond the people that are currently sitting at the dais. You have to figure out the future and what's best as you move forward. I don't want anybody to take it personally. It's nothing against you or the next chair or whatever. It's just something that if you look at it, you step back and you put yourself out of it, it would make perfect sense to do something like this.
Does anyone have any other policy issues that they want to direct staff to look at other than that one so that we can give them directions today? Yes, Mr. Walters.
Well, I'd like, as long as we're doing this exercise, I'd like to look at the issue I brought up at the last meeting, which is it a smart thing to only allow a person to serve as the chair for 2 years, now that we only have 9 members as opposed to 13?
So, and as I indicated the last meeting, I have no objection to that being evaluated after today's meeting because I did not want to change the policies at this point. So you've gotten 2 directives on 2 things to review at policy. One is what was suggested by Ms. Gutierrez and also by Board Member Walters as well. Any other things they want to review?
Do you want me to address cutting down the meetings too? Because I think that would help everybody here.
Sure.
Is extremely busy, and
Whatever, and I'm going to make this directive. There are 2 directives that have been given by the board, and I'm going to give you a catch-all. Any other policy issues relating to the size of the board that you believe we should be attentive to and review based on evaluation of staff, we should review as well. So you got 2 direct directives and a catch-all that gives you guys open season to tell us what you want to talk about.
That's when you get in trouble with the catch-all.
Very good. Any other matters on this issue? Hearing none, moving forward. Mr. Treasurer, since we've done the budget workshop, do you have anything else to add to the report for today as well?
Just very briefly.
If we look at the results for May 31st of this year, we have very positive news both on the revenue side and on the expense side, and it's outpacing even, the most optimistic expectations. If you look at the bottom line, not to bore you, we had projected $98 million as net revenues for the period. Taking into consideration that we have an event, which is Hurricane Matthew, that affected negatively $3.4 million, we are still exceeding our May budget number by $10 million. Taking into consideration the $3.4 million, if it was a normal year, that would be 13%. So there are events happening both on the revenue side, lower gasoline prices, usage completely outpacing our projections, and both on the expense side. Now, sometimes these deviations are great news, but I take a different perspective. We want to project and be as accurate as possible. So we'll look at the projections that we have for 17 and 18 and see if they are conservative or if there's something that we can do to make them more accurate for the next period. We want to a budget should be as close to reality as possible. And those conclude my remarks.
Any questions based on that report? Hearing none, moving forward. The consent agenda, please, council.
Yes, consent agenda A, travel approval, September 8th through the 13th, 2017, trip to Atlanta, Georgia by MDX board members and Executive Director Rodriguez to attend the IBTTA Board of Directors / committee meetings September 8th through the 10th, and IBTTA 85th annual meeting and exhibition September 10th to 13th.
Anyone who wishes to move those items? Moved by Mr. Meyer, seconded by Ms. Treasurer Board. Any objection? Items are open for discussion. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, discussion is closed. Anyone in opposition to them, since they're consent items? Hearing no opposition, all items pass unanimously. Go on.
Okay, regular agenda, item A, approval of fiscal year 2018 annual budget and funding requirements, endorsed by the Budget and Finance Committee on June 27, 2017.
By the way, board members, we had an alternate agenda just in case it didn't pass the workshop before the meeting. We would have put a different note, but that's just a side note.
Who wishes to move this item? Moved by Chair Gutierrez, seconded by former Chair. Moved by Treasurer Board, seconded by past Chair Gutierrez. It's open for discussion. Does anyone have any other questions after the workshop? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, moving on. Item B, please.
Item B, MDX procurement contract number RFQ 14-06, Municipal Financial Advisory Services, endorsed by the Budget and Finance Committee on June 27th, 2017. Approval to exercise renewal option of the term of contract with First Southwest.
Who wishes to move this item? Moved by Vice Chair Fano, seconded by Ms. Gutierrez. The item is now open for discussion. Is there any more discussion that needs to be done on this item? None. Discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the item passes unanimously. Item C, please, council.
Item C, MDX procurement contract RFQ 17-01, MDX work program number, various numbers, miscellaneous materials, engineering, and testing services, $200,000 per contract, endorsed by the Operations Committee on June 22nd, 2017. Approval for staff to negotiate rates and enter into a contract for not to exceed amount of $200,000 with each pre-qualified consultant.
Who wishes to move the item?
Move it.
Moved by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Board Member Commissioner Edmondson. Item is now open for discussion. Is there anyone going to do a presentation on behalf of staff today? Mr. Rodriguez.
Again, this agenda item, as we discussed it at committee the other day, we did reduce the amount per firm to $200,000. These are 6 qualified firms. It'll be treated as a pool, and we will rotate the services through task authorizations to each one of these vendors.
This item was vetted during operations. However, if anyone has any questions on the item, please let me know. Staff will respond. Hearing no questions, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Next item, please, council.
Item D, MDX procurement contract number ITB 17-04, system-wide maintenance of traffic services, $1,650,000, endorsed by the Operations Committee on June 22nd, 2017. Approval of contract award to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder.
Who wishes to move the item?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Commissioner Edmondson. The item is now open for discussion.
Just one comment. I think that as you're moving forward through these items very quickly, I just wanted to note for those that were not in those meetings that every one of these items, this one in particular, took a long discussion. And as you're going through and being very expeditious and very efficient, that was not what happened in the Operations Committee.
Right, and I
That's
was
all.
always going to comment that. This item is staff, does anyone have any questions for staff? This was very thoroughly vetted at Operations. If anyone feels they need a presentation because they were not there, staff is ready to present one. Hearing no, does anyone have any questions for staff on this item? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Item E.
Item E, comprehensive safety and rehabilitation program for State Road 836, State Road 874, State Road 878, and State Road 924. $31 million, endorsed by the Operations Committee on June 22nd, 2017. Approval of comprehensive safety and rehabilitation program for State Road 836, State Road 874, State Road 878, and State Road 924.
Does anyone wish to move this item?
I like to move it. We got a super presentation from staff, and there's major deficiencies that we need to address at this point. This is also already included in the budget that we just passed, so I'm very happy to move this item. Safety is number one for us.
And I was looking to you, Ms. Gutierrez, because this was definitely one of the things that you were greater concern on. I wanted to make sure you got the chance to move it. Who wishes to second it?
A second.
Seconded by Treasurer Board. I'm going to open discussion. I want to commend staff for the presentation they put on in Operations. It was very thorough. Mr. Toledo, congratulations. You were able to, made a promise to us that you'd have it ready for us by Operations, and you had it done, and you hit it out of the park that day. You did a Giancarlo Stanton hit on that one. Let me commend you for that. And I also want to commend the board members and the members of the Operations Committee for their questions and in attention to all of the details in reference to this. Does anyone have any questions about this? And I couldn't agree more with you, Ms. Gutierrez. Safety needs to be our number one priority. So, Mr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I just want to point out that each one of those projects will be brought back through the proper channels to place in the work program. So that presentation was a comprehensive presentation. It was a view of the 5 facilities, but we will bring each one of the projects back to you for individual consideration.
Very good. Any other questions or comments on the item?
Yeah, I'll have another comment on this item. I think he also brought it back. He wanted to make sure that he didn't get numerous calls from me. He wanted to avoid that.
I'm pretty sure about that, yes.
I'm pretty sure that that was also a compelling reason.
And if I recall, he first said that he'd do, I think it was the 112 highway first, kept his promise on that, and then he promised that by the next Operations Committee, he'd have the whole thing. And you got it. I'm impressed.
Fear is a greater sentence.
And having Ms. Gutierrez calling you is definitely, can definitely get you inspired to work fast. Any other comments? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, moving on. Item F.
MDX Work Program Number 92404, State Road 924, Extension West to the Heft, $5,200,000, endorsed by the Operations Committee on June 22nd, 2017. Approval of advance acquisition of parcel 100.
Anyone wish to move it? Moved by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Mr. Meyer. It is open for discussion. Again, this was an item that was thoroughly vetted in Operations. If anyone wishes to have any questions about the item, Mr. Toledo is ready to make a presentation on behalf of staff to those who were not present. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor of the item passing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Next item, please, counsel.
Item G, MDX Work Program 87410, State Road 874 Ramp Connector to 128th Street, endorsed by the Operations Committee on June 22nd, 2017. Approval of eminent domain parcel resolution 17-02.
Who wishes to move the item? Moved by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Mr. Meyer. The item is now open for discussion. This is another item that was thoroughly vetted at Operations, but staff is ready to make any presentation to anyone who has a question on the item.
Yeah. If the board members look at the last page, it's those two little parcels, 8-4A and B, and they're to put valves and fire hydrants at the request of Water and Sewer along 128th Street, which is part of the project that we're constructing.
Does anyone have any questions for staff based upon that or any other information? Hearing no questions, discussion item is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Council, item H, it's all yours.
Election of officers, authority officers. Do you mind if I stand?
Go right ahead.
It's definitely a pleasure working with the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer for the past year. These are the board elections for fiscal year 2018. Before I start, I'd like to go over the process. We have 2 new members, and I'm sure they've been through many elections, but this is the MDX election. I'll open the floor for part 1 is the nominations. I'll open the floor for nominations for each board office. Begin with the office of chair. You may nominate yourself, or you may nominate someone else. There must be a second to the nomination. Members need not to be present to be nominated or elected. Part 2, candidate statement and questions after the nomination for the office is closed. If the nominee chooses, they may make a statement or distribute a written statement to the members and the executive secretary for the record. Fellow board members may ask questions. Part 3 is a discussion. There will be an opportunity for members to comment on the various candidates, and when comments are concluded, the balloting for the office will commence. Buddy, did you give out the ballots? Okay, cool. Voting. Voting will be by written ballot that have been provided in your folders, color-coded for each office. For members, we have nobody on telephonically. So if on the first ballot, no nominee receives the majority of the votes, the members receiving the fewest number of votes will be dropped from the balloting, and the second round will commence. If there's only one nominee for the position, voting can be completed by acclamation. Before I open the nominations for the chair, are there any questions on the? Go ahead.
We're having a workshop on the role of the chair in July, as far as the committees go. Is that true? In July, we're having a workshop?
I believe what has been directed was for staff to review the policies on changing the policy in reference to the voting ability insofar as the subcommittee involving the chair.
So I guess I'm asking, I'm trying to think to myself, I guess, is it appropriate to proceed with electing a chair today when we don't even really know what the chair's role is going to be?
Well, if I may, I think the general role of the chair is already going to be established. I think there might be some differences in whether they can or cannot vote on whether they be an ex officio a member. But
well, it's a matter of workload for the person.
But if an individual accepts their responsibilities, they're going to be very well aware of why they're going to take the chair. It's a job, and it's something that they're going to. It's not a job. It's a passion. It's a calling. So I am very comfortable with the idea that we should move forward today because that's what's established and that's what our bylaws require. If certain aspects of the job changes because we change some rules, that's not going to be. I think that's going to be more minutia issues than an absolute changing of what the responsibilities of the chair is. So my instincts are to say that this needs to go forward today because that's what we've established in our bylaws. Does anyone disagree?
No, I want to add to what you're saying. The role of the chair is the chair of the board.
Absolutely.
The only thing that would end up changing is choices of going to both committees or not, okay?
Right.
The other way we had it, it was a must to attend.
Mm-hmm.
So now that chair has an option once we discuss it. But at the same time, basically, not just an option to attend to those committee, also, if there is a tiebreaker on an issue, that they vote. They break the tie.
Like the vice
so
president.
it really gives more of accountability and sensibility. But the chair's role is still very important, and it's still the same.
And I'm a firm believer that we should move forward with that today. As I was clear about that then, we have a specific timetable that this is to be done. We're not in an emergency situation. It should go forward as it's established now. that issue about voting is the only issue that really is going to change, and that is all. So I think we should move forward today. And
Yeah, I want to add one more thing, Chair.
Sure.
Yeah, and, you know, we have to start considering in the palette of colors, pink.
I have
Pink.
nothing to do with that.
In these colors, you know, usually it's green, yellow, and blue. Pink should be added too.
Green is always for treasurer. That's
Yeah.
the only one that.
Green is
I-
fine for treasurer, but we need to add pink in one of the choices. I think it's
Sorry,
very
Board Member
important.
Gutierrez, I'm
definitely will
against
consider that.
stereotypes of all kinds, including the pink one, okay? So,
I think it's safe to say if you are going to be nominated or are considering being the chair, that you move forward knowing that right now that you're responsible for going to both standing committees. So there will be, as of right now, there's a lot of work. Okay?
from personal experience, it's a lot of work. It's pleasurable, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. Okay, so let's move forward today
All right.
with that issue.
All right, this is the election for the chair. The floor is now open for nominations for the office of chair for the governing board for the authority.
In the spirit of blue, I'd like to nominate Mayor Carlos Jimenez.
Thank you very much, Shelley, but at this point, I'm going to decline to be considered for chair. I think that I can serve this board much better by being over here where all the troublemakers are. And also, there is, like you said, there's a lot of work to be done. And again, I think I can serve this board better right here where I'm at. So thank you very much for the nomination, but I decline at this time.
You like this section,
Wow.
huh?
I didn't even get a chance to say second. My first declination too, Mayor. Chair Martinez, excuse me.
Well, for me, this is very easy. I have sat next to this person now for 2 years, and I have been colleagues of them for more than 9. She was a member of the board with me when my first child was born. She shared grandchildren pictures with me as I've shared pictures of my 3 beautiful children that I brag about all the time. She has shown an absolute dedication to this board. She has served on every possible committee. She has been vice chair on multiple occasions, and she is someone I take great pride in her opinion and her ability to listen to all sides. So for me, it's very simple. I truly believe that this is the right person to be our chair at this time, so I nominate Vice Chair Shelley Fano for chairman of the MDX Board of Directors. And I would ask for a second.
Second by
Mr.
Commissioner
Myers
and Commissioner Edmondson.
I would ask them if,
That's a
is
fourth.
this your call? You can do it by acclamation unless there's.
Well,
any other nominations.
I got to ask if anybody else is interested.
Hey, this is the last time I can be a
Is there
little
any
bossy.
other nominations for chair? Okay, we have none. So we don't have to go through the questions, and if I can get a motion of acclamation?
For acclamation of Vice Chair Shelley Fano to be the new chair of the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, congratulations. Vice Chair Fano.
Absolutely. Now that she has been nominated and voted on acclamation, I want to recognize someone who is here, who I'm sure is very clear to your heart, the Lieutenant Governor Carlos Lopez Cantera, who is also Ms. Fano's son, is here, and I'd like to welcome you for being here, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for your time. Moving on to Vice Chair, please.
Election of the Vice Chair. The floor is now open for nominations for the office of Vice Chair of the Authority. Since you declined, you go first. Okay, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to nominate for Vice Chair Audrey Edmondson, the Vice Chair of the County Commission.
Second.
That was quick. Any other nominations for Vice Chair? Okay, I'll go vote. Can I get a motion for acclamation?
Acclamation of Commissioner Edmondson to be the Vice Chair of the MDX Board of Directors.
All in favor? All right. Congratulations. You're now the Vice Chair.
Can I just recognize that it's the first time that we have
Absolutely.
2 women, chair and vice chair women?
Wow.
We didn't need the pink.
I was about to say, we're going pink next year regardless.
I happen to like pink, by the way.
We did use green for the next office. Election of the treasurer. The floor is now open for nominations of
Nominate
treasurer.
Leonard Board.
I'm seconding
Second.
that without any,
Second.
we'll second it together. Unanimously agree.
Okay, is there any other nominations for treasurer? None? Okay, get a motion for
I
acclamation.
move for acclamation of current interim treasurer board for him to be elected for a full term as treasurer of the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay, congratulations, Mr. Board. I think your presentation took it over the top today. It was outstanding.
I stacked the deck.
Yeah, I was wondering why we had it that day. No, like, okay. Election of board secretary. The office of board secretary is now required to be held by a member of the board. Over the many years, the position has been ably filled by Maria Luisa Navia Lobo.
I nominate,
Okay, you saved me.
can we have a
Second.
second of everyone? I move for acclamation.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I offered you last year to make a speech. Would you like to make a speech? Okay. Okay, we have an assistant board secretary. While we are fortunate to have Maria Luisa is always here keeping things running smoothly in the event of an absence, our bylaws provide that the authority should elect at least one assistant secretary. Michael Kiliani has been doing it for the last year. Michael is the custodian of records, and he works with me in the legal unit. I would strongly recommend someone making a motion. Okay.
Second.
Second.
Acclamation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Michael. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Should all elections be that easy?
Well, these are, I have spoken to Chair-elect Fano, and I indicated that I want her to have the last word of today's meeting. So I will just give you some very brief final thoughts of my own. It has really been an honor to be the chair for the last 2 years. It has been one of the greatest experiences of my professional career and my effort as a volunteer. This is an amazing board. It has been an amazing board, not only with the members of today, but the members of the past. Carlos Guzman, Jose Hevia, and Rick Rodriguez-Pina, and many, many others, Mayor Ferre, and I could go on and on and on. Everyone who's ever sat on this board with me over the 9 years and the 2 years I've been chair have done nothing but dedicate themselves to exactly what we were talking about, Mr. Mayor, doing what's best for the community, because we're all volunteers. Everyone on this board does this and takes time out of their schedule and takes time out of what they do to be here to do what we believe is best for the community. Sometimes at a great cost. Many board members today, because of decisions they made, are no longer sitting on this board, but they thought it was the right thing to do, and for that, they should be respected. And, you know, we take a lot of hits as a board, to say the least, but again, it's because of our accomplishments. There are things that we did, not me, but we did over the last 2 years that I can't tell you how proud of. The rewards program is something that we should always take pride in. Year one, 38,000 people got a refund of their total dollars. Last year, over 55,000. And who knows what the number is going to be. I'm looking forward to hearing that number now in August. That is so unique. It's not done anywhere else in the country. And for those out there who have tweeted about this, yeah, I am proud of the rewards program. I'm absolutely proud of it, because those who show that we are fiscally responsible, and we do that. We've also moved forward and we completed the 826, 836 project. We broke ground on the Dolphin park and ride together with the county. We broke ground on the final phases of the 836 project that is currently moving forward. And all the other things that we have done moving forward as a team. This isn't about me, this really is about we, because none of this could have been done without staff. It certainly couldn't be done without the dedication of everyone here. Shelley, I couldn't be happier to have someone who has dedicated so much of their time over the last 9 years to be sitting in this chair after me. There is no one I can imagine that has been more involved with this as I have than you. Sometimes we've disagreed, but it's always been, but most of the time we agree. And it's your passion for doing what you believe is the right thing is what I believe is what we need to continue doing here. and I am truly honored and humbled and hopeful that you can count on me as a member to constantly be active in working hard, as I always have, for this board. And I want to thank you all for everything you've done. For those who have been here with me the longest, you guys were, I was on this board before I had a first kid, and some of you have watched them grow up. Mr. Mayor, we dropped off our kids together last year. Those are the kind of things you can't share with in the professional world. You know, I meet an opponent in court, and then we move on. This is a little different. We spend every month together here. So thank you all for your support. Thank you all for your help. And let's keep doing what we've always done. And Shelley, I can't tell you how excited I am for you to sit in this chair and not have me have to do it anymore. Congratulations again to you. I will leave the final words before I adjourn the meeting to the, I'd like you all please to give a round of applause to the newly elected, the chair-elect of the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, Ms. Shelley Fano.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the acclamation. It means a lot. And thank you, fellow board members, for everything that you've done for me by supporting me over this almost decade. I'm humbled because I know you're placing a lot of faith and trust in me. This is a responsibility I do not take lightly, and I will strive to represent you with the utmost transparency and boldness. You know me for that. I'm grateful for my gubernatorial appointments, for the myriad of local, state, and federal government officials who over the past 9 years have opened my eyes to many things, new perspectives regarding transportation, regarding MDX, projects, mobility, and initiatives. Many thanks to MDX staff and to our executive director, Javier Suarez. Rodriguez. I couldn't resist it. I'm sorry, Javier.
They're making fun of me, just so that you know. I was the one that made that mistake earlier.
An inside joke, Mr. Board.
Yeah, I know, but the other Suarez is Xavier. It's different. It's with an X. This is
Stop
Javier.
rubbing it in, okay?
No. You didn't mean that one. You meant somebody else.
I appreciate you bringing the levity in and helping me get through this, because I'm a little bit emotional. This has opened my eyes, and many thanks to the MDX staff. Again, ever ready to answer my questions, offer explanations and clarifications, and I call a lot. Thank you for yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I would like to thank my friends and my family and my son, Carlos Lopez Quintero. Thank you. I would be remiss if I did not voice my gratitude to Miami-Dade College and my colleagues who are my work family, who have continually over the years encouraged and supported my volunteer mission here on this board. I truly appreciate all of you for your extraordinary support. And this is the most important part I'm going to say now. Lastly, but most importantly, I reiterate, I want to recognize and thank all the drivers and passengers that travel on our MDX roadways, as it is you, all of you drivers and passengers, who fund and continue to support our operations, both historically and for our future endeavors, which will definitely drive mobility. I truly acknowledge the essential role that you play in enhancing and moving transportation forward for our county, its residents, and visitors. My fellow board members, all of you, as we move forward to meet mobility challenges this county faces today, I will listen, for we will listen as we all move forward, listening together to meet the great challenges of tomorrow. Thank you all for the opportunity to serve.
This is an extraordinarily long meeting for me. It's 5:22, but nonetheless, move to adjourn. Move to adjourn. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for your time and your attention today. Have a wonderful evening. And for all of you, happy 4th.
Request to take a picture of the board.
Sure. Absolutely. Let's take a request. Board members,
Tell them not to leave.
there's been a request to take a photo.
Yes.